Everything seemed perfect at first glance. A young Filipina nurse chasing her dreams in the dazzling city of Dubai. But beneath the glitz and glamour lurked a deadly secret. Maria Santos left her humble life behind, hoping to build a better future for herself and her family. 3 years later, her shattered body was found far from the luxury she once sought, buried in a desert that witnessed more than just sand and silence. And the man tied to her fate? None other than the heir to a billionaire Sheikh's $300 million fortune. A man whose charm hid a darkness that would unravel everything Maria ever believed in. It all began with a promise. A seductive invitation that pulled Maria into a world of power, betrayal, and greed. A world where love was a weapon and trust a fatal mistake. The last message Maria sent to her sister was simple. "I'm finally where I'm meant to be." But that was the last time she was heard from alive. Her death wasn't a random tragedy. It was a calculated move in a ruthless game of inheritance. A game where money could erase a life without leaving a trace. This is the story of Maria Santos, a nurse who crossed oceans for hope, only to become a pawn in a deadly battle for wealth and power. A woman caught in the shadows of a family empire, where secrets were currency and betrayal was the price of survival. Before we dive into the events that led to Maria's untimely death, you need to know who she was, not just a victim, but a fighter who dared to dream in a world built on lies and deadly ambitions. Welcome to Dark Truth Files. Thanks to all my viewers and subscribers for your support. Stay tuned for daily true crime updates. Don't forget to subscribe. Maria Santos was everything her patients hoped for. A gentle, attentive nurse with a heart big enough to heal even the deepest wounds. Born and raised in a small coastal town in the Philippines, Maria's life was shaped by sacrifice and dreams. From a young age, she knew she wanted more than the hardships that surrounded her. Nursing wasn't just a job. It was her ticket to a better future, a way to provide for her family back home. When she landed a job at the prestigious Al Fayed Medical Center in Dubai, it felt like the universe had finally smiled upon her. The sprawling hospital, nestled within the city's gleaming skyline, was a far cry from the modest clinics she had worked at before. But the stakes were higher and so were the expectations. Still, Maria embraced every challenge with quiet determination, winning the trust of her patients and colleagues alike. Her life outside work was simple: modest apartment, few close friends, daily video calls with her mother and younger siblings. Every evening, she allowed herself a moment to dream about what lay beyond the city's glittering facade. Yet beneath her composed exterior, a restlessness simmered, an unspoken yearning for something more. That something arrived on a rainy Thursday evening. Maria was finishing her shift when a sleek black car pulled up to the hospital entrance. Out stepped Omar Al Fayed, the Sheikh's nephew, a man whose reputation was as complicated as the vast fortune his family controlled. Known for his charm and mysterious dealings, Omar was the subject of many whispered rumors. But tonight, his attention was solely fixed on Maria. She barely registered the diamond necklace wrapped in velvet before it was placed gently in her hands. Attached was a small note, penned in elegant Arabic script, that read only, "For a life yet to be lived." Maria's heart raced. What could this mean? Why her? As she slipped the necklace into her pocket, a faint sense of unease settled. Omar's sudden appearance was more than coincidence. There was an edge to his smile, a promise wrapped in shadows. That night, as the city lights flickered through her apartment window, Maria stared at the gift, questions swirling in her mind. Who was this man she barely knew, and what world was he inviting her into? Before sleep could claim her, her phone buzzed, an unknown number flashing briefly before disappearing. A missed call, perhaps, or something more deliberate. Maria's fingers trembled as she checked her messages. Nothing, yet the silence felt heavy, ominous. Her thoughts drifted to the Al Fayed family's sprawling empire, the billion-dollar business, the endless power struggles, and most dangerously, the disputed $300 million inheritance that had recently made headlines. Omar, as the nephew, was at the center of this storm, tangled in webs of loyalty, greed, and betrayal. But for Maria, none of that mattered yet. or so she thought. In the quiet moments before dawn, a shadow loomed, a secret waiting to unravel, threatening to shatter her carefully balanced world. As the first rays of sunlight spilled across Dubai's towering skyline, Maria's journey into a world of seduction, deception, and deadly ambition was just beginning. But what did the cryptic note truly mean? And why was Maria chosen by Omar of all people? The answers would soon unravel. Omar Al-Fayed was a man who commanded attention without ever demanding it. In the sprawling luxury of Dubai's elite circles, he moved like a shadow, charming, unpredictable, and dangerously enigmatic. The billionaire Sheikh's nephew carried the weight of a family legacy, but beneath the glittering surface lay restless ambition and secrets too heavy to bear. When Omar first saw Maria Santos, he saw more than just a nurse. There was a quiet strength in her eyes, a vulnerability wrapped in resilience, and perhaps most intoxicating, an innocence untouched by the corruption that stained his world. He knew that bringing her closer wasn't just a whim. It was a calculated risk with stakes far beyond love. 2 days after the gift appeared in her hands, Maria received an unexpected invitation, an ornate envelope sealed with the Al-Fayed family crest. Inside, an elegant card requested her presence at a private gathering at the Sheikh's palatial residence. The event was informal, a rare chance to glimpse behind the guarded walls of a dynasty built on wealth, power, and secrets. As Maria stepped into the grand hall that evening, a wave of awe swept over her. Crystal chandeliers cast shimmering light across marble floors, and the scent of exotic incense hung heavy in the air. Faces flashed by business magnates, diplomats, family members, each carrying their own masks of ambition and caution. Omar appeared beside her, effortlessly pulling her into the fold of his world. "Welcome, Maria," he whispered, his voice low with promise. "Tonight, you'll see why this family's fortune is more than just numbers." The party unfolded in layers, smiles masking whispered alliances, laughter barely concealing tension. Maria observed, her nurse's instinct sharpened by years of reading people. She noticed subtle glances exchanged over expensive glasses of wine, the nervous twitch of a hand hiding a secret. At one point, Maria overheard a hushed conversation between 2 men in a secluded corner. "The Sheikh's health is failing," one murmured, "and with him, the $300 million inheritance becomes a powder keg." The other nodded grimly. Omar's claim is far from guaranteed. The revelation sent a chill through Maria's veins. She realized then that she was no longer just a bystander. She was entangled in a dangerous game where trust was a currency few could afford. Omar caught her eye and smiled, but the warmth she sought was tinged with something darker, an unspoken warning. "Be careful who you trust here," he said softly. "Not everyone wants the same future." The evening ended with Maria returning to her apartment, mind racing with questions and suspicions. Her phone buzzed again, a text this time. A single line, "Watch closely. The truth hides in plain sight." Before she could respond, her screen went black. No signal, no power, just silence. In that moment, Maria understood her life was shifting irreversibly. The world she had known, simple, predictable, was dissolving into a labyrinth of secrets, lies, and danger. And Omar's invitation was just the beginning. The days following the invitation blurred into a haze of secret meetings and whispered promises. Maria found herself pulled deeper into Omar's world, a place where passion and peril intertwined like the twisting corridors of the Sheikh's estate. His attention was intoxicating, yet every smile carried a shadow, every touch a question she dared not ask. Omar was a master of seduction, weaving desire with calculated precision. He knew how to disarm suspicion with a glance, how to mask his motives behind charm and warmth. To Maria, his presence was both a balm and a warning, an irresistible force she was powerless to resist. Their relationship unfolded in stolen moments, quiet dinners under chandeliers, late-night drives through Dubai's neon-lit streets, and whispered conversations where the weight of unspoken secrets lingered heavy in the air. Maria felt the walls she had built around her heart begin to crumble, replaced by a dangerous hope that this could be more than just a fleeting escape. Yet beneath the surface, doubts gnawed at her. Omar's world was one of power struggles and ruthless ambition, and she was an outsider stepping into a game she didn't fully understand. The diamond necklace he had given her was more than a gift. It was a symbol of possession, a token in a complex play of control and desire. One evening, as they sat overlooking the city from the Sheikh's private balcony, Maria's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. She hesitated before opening it, her fingers trembling slightly. The message read, "Not everything is as it seems. Trust no one." Her eyes met Omar's, searching for answers. He smiled, but there was a flicker of something unreadable in his gaze. "People will say things to test your loyalty," he said softly. "Ignore them." But Maria couldn't shake the feeling that she was being drawn into a web of lies. Her nurse's intuition, honed by years of reading subtle signs of pain and deception, screamed that danger lurked just beyond the surface. Her suspicions were confirmed days later when she accidentally discovered an encrypted folder on Omar's laptop during a brief absence. Curiosity and fear warred within her as she opened it, revealing a trove of documents, financial transfers, secret correspondence, and photos that painted a chilling picture of a man embroiled in far more than family disputes. Among the files was a message from an unknown sender. $300 million inheritance at stake. The prize for the one who plays dirty enough. Maria's heart pounded. The stakes were higher than she had imagined, and her involvement was no longer accidental. That night, Omar confronted her, his expression darkening as he realized she had seen too much. "Maria," he said quietly, "you don't understand what you've stumbled into. This family, this legacy, it's not just about money. It's about survival." She looked into his eyes, searching for the man she had come to trust, but all she saw was a flicker of cold calculation. Their conversation ended in silence, the distance between them filled with unspoken threats and fragile promises. Days later, Maria received an anonymous tip, a voice on the phone warning her to stay away from the Al-Fayed estate. "They don't forgive," the voice hissed, "especially not for outsiders." The warning only tightened the noose. Maria was caught between her growing feelings for Omar and the terrifying reality of the power struggles tearing the family apart. As the sun set over Dubai's skyline, casting long shadows across the city, Maria realized she was no longer just a nurse or a hopeful dreamer. She was a player in a deadly game, where love was a weapon and betrayal was inevitable. Maria Santos had always believed that the past was best left buried, like fragments of broken glass hidden beneath the sands of time. But as her world grew darker with each passing day, the shadows of her history began to seep through the cracks, threatening to shatter the fragile veneer of control she desperately clung to. Born in a small, impoverished village in the Philippines, Maria's childhood was marked by hardship and loss. Her father, a fisherman, had vanished at sea when she was just 8 years old, leaving her mother to raise 4 children alone. Every day was a battle for survival. Barefoot runs through muddy streets, evenings spent studying by candlelight, and the constant ache of knowing that dreams were luxuries few in her world could afford. But Maria had a secret that no one knew, a debt that weighed heavily on her shoulders. Years before, when her mother fell gravely ill, Maria made a desperate bargain with a local loan shark to pay for life-saving treatment. The debt had since grown like a shadow over her life, a constant reminder that she was tethered to forces far beyond her control. As she settled into her new life in Dubai, memories of those dark days returned with haunting clarity. The cold hospital corridors where she worked now echoed with a different kind of pain, one she could not heal. And the looming threat of the Al-Fayed family's inheritance battle only added to the growing storm within her. One evening, alone in her modest apartment, Maria's phone rang. The caller ID was blocked, and a voice she did not recognize whispered, "Your past is catching up. Be careful who you trust." The call ended abruptly, leaving Maria trembling with fear and confusion. Was it a warning or a threat? She couldn't tell, but it was clear that her life was no longer her own. Omar's presence, once a source of comfort, now felt like a chain tightening around her neck. The man she had come to love was deeply entangled in the web of secrets and lies she was trying to escape. His own demons, the pressure to secure the inheritance, the complicated family loyalties, cast long shadows over their fragile bond. One night, unable to sleep, Maria rummaged through old photographs and letters she had kept hidden. A glimpse into a life she had tried to forget. There was a faded picture of her father smiling beside a small fishing boat, a letter from her mother filled with hope and despair, and a worn photograph of her siblings, each carrying their own scars. As tears welled in her eyes, she realized that the innocence she once had was gone. The dreams of a better future now seemed as fragile as glass, ready to shatter at any moment. But Maria was not alone in her darkness. The Alfayed estate was a battlefield of its own, where alliances shifted like sand, and trust was a luxury none could afford. Rumors swirled of secret deals, betrayals, and a ruthless power struggle that could consume anyone who dared to stand in the way. Her fears were confirmed when a trusted colleague at the hospital confided in her about strange occurrences, missing documents, whispered threats, and a growing sense of paranoia that had settled over the staff. Maria's world was closing in, the lines between friend and foe blurring with each passing day. The inheritance was no longer just a distant headline. It was a ticking time bomb threatening to explode and take her down with it. As she prepared for another day under the weight of secrets and lies, a new message arrived on her phone. This time it was an image, a photograph of her mother's village, but someone had marked a location with a red circle. Beneath it, a chilling caption, "We are watching." The past was no longer buried. It had risen from the shadows, and Maria's fight for survival had only just begun. The Sheikh's health was deteriorating rapidly. Once a towering figure of authority in Dubai's elite circles, he now lay confined to his lavish estate, his life hanging by a fragile thread. Behind the ornate walls of the palace, a battle was unfolding, one that would decide the fate of a $300 million fortune, and with it, the lives of everyone caught in its web. Omar Al-Fayed, the Sheikh's nephew, had staked his claim early, asserting that he was the rightful heir to the sprawling empire. But the path to the inheritance was anything but clear. Family members, business partners, and shadowy figures lurked in every corner, each ready to tear down anyone who stood between them and the prize. Maria found herself caught in the crossfire. Her connection to Omar was no longer a private secret. It was a dangerous liability. Whispers circulated among the palace staff, questions about the nurse who had captured the attention of the powerful heir. Trust was scarce, and suspicion was a weapon wielded with deadly precision. One evening, Maria attended a family meeting, held in the Sheikh's grand hall. The air was thick with tension. Faces that once smiled warmly now bore the masks of strategists and adversaries. The discussion was sharp, punctuated by veiled threats and calculated alliances. "The Sheikh's will must be honored," Omar declared, his voice steady but carrying the weight of unspoken threats. "Any attempt to challenge the rightful heir will be met with resistance." But others had different plans. His cousin Faisal, a shrewd businessman with a reputation for ruthlessness, countered with a cold smile. "The will is in dispute. Until its authenticity is verified, no decisions can be final." Documents were passed around, each side scrutinizing the papers for weaknesses, contradictions, anything that could tip the scales in their favor. Maria watched from the sidelines, heart pounding. The $300 million inheritance was no longer an abstract figure. It was a weapon that could destroy lives. That night, as the palace emptied and shadows lengthened, Maria's phone buzzed again. An encrypted message appeared. "The will hides more than you know. Trust no one." The sender was unknown, but the warning was clear. Omar's facade cracked when Maria confronted him the next morning. "What are you hiding?" she demanded, eyes burning with desperation. He looked away, silence stretching between them. Finally, he confessed, "There are secrets in this family that could ruin us all. The inheritance is more than money. It's a legacy built on betrayal and blood." The deeper Maria delved into the Al-Fayed world, the more she realized how perilous her position had become. Allies could turn enemies in an instant, and every smile masked a potential knife. Her fears were confirmed when she discovered a hidden room in the palace. A vault containing documents, photographs, and recordings that revealed a tangled web of deceit. Among them was a faded letter from the Sheikh himself, hinting at a secret heir who could overturn the entire inheritance claim. Maria's mind reeled. The game was far from over, and the stakes were higher than ever. As she pieced together fragments of the past, she became aware of eyes watching her every move. Security tightened, whispers followed her footsteps, and the line between protector and predator blurred. One night, she overheard a heated argument between Omar and Faisal. The voices were sharp, full of threats and accusations. "You're playing a dangerous game," Faisal warned. "One wrong move and everything collapses." Omar's reply was cold and final. "I will protect what's mine, no matter the cost." The warning was clear. The battle for the $300 million inheritance was escalating into a war, one where betrayal was the currency and survival the prize. As Maria left the palace that evening, a car followed her through the winding streets of Dubai. She noticed the headlights lingering in her rearview mirror, heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. She knew then that stepping into the Al Fayed inheritance game meant risking everything, including her life. The Al Fayed estate was a labyrinth of secrets, where truth was a luxury and deception the currency of survival. As the battle over the inheritance intensified, Maria found herself entangled in a web so complex and dangerous that every move threatened to unravel her. Whispers circulated like poison through the marble halls, alliances forged in shadow, betrayals masked by false smiles. Omar, once a figure of confidence and charm, now appeared weary, his facade cracking under the strain of family pressure and mounting suspicion. Maria's world shifted daily, caught between loyalty and doubt. Friends became suspects. Colleagues, once trusted, now cast furtive glances. The nurse who had once found comfort in her routines was now navigating a minefield, each step potentially fatal. Rumors surfaced that documents proving the Sheikh's true will had been forged. Investigations stalled, with key witnesses disappearing or recanting under mysterious circumstances. The family's lawyer, a cold, calculating man named Rashid, seemed to hold more power than anyone realized, his allegiance unclear. Maria discovered encrypted messages exchanged between Omar and unknown contacts, their coded language hinting at clandestine deals and hidden threats. Her trust in him wavered as layers of his carefully constructed persona peeled away to reveal a man desperate to protect his claim at any cost. One afternoon, while reviewing patient records, Maria received an anonymous note slipped under her door. "You are not safe. They watch your every move." The handwriting was shaky, the fear palpable. Was it a warning or a cry for help? She tried to confide in Omar, but he dismissed her fears as paranoia. "This is the world we live in," he said coldly. "If you want to survive, you need to be stronger." That night, Maria's apartment was broken into. Nothing was stolen, but drawers were rifled through, papers scattered as if someone was searching for something specific. The message was clear. She was being watched, her secrets no longer safe. As tension mounted, Maria uncovered a shocking revelation. Faisal, Omar's cousin and chief rival in the inheritance battle, had been funneling money through offshore accounts, funds linked to shadowy figures with histories of violence and intimidation. This discovery deepened the divide between the cousins, turning the fight for the $300 million into a bitter, personal war. Maria realized that this was no longer just a family dispute. It was a dangerous game involving criminal elements willing to kill to win. In the midst of this chaos, Maria met Layla, Omar's estranged sister, a woman shrouded in mystery. Layla's arrival introduced a new layer of complexity. Her bitter resentment toward Omar and her own claims to the inheritance threatened to ignite fresh conflicts. Layla confided in Maria, revealing cracks in the family's facade. "They're all playing their own games," she said bitterly. "No one is innocent, not even Omar." The weight of betrayal pressed heavily on Maria. She struggled to discern friend from foe, truth from manipulation. Every conversation held hidden meanings. Every glance concealed ulterior motives. One evening, as Maria walked through the dimly lit streets of Dubai, she felt eyes on her once again. A shadow detached itself from the darkness, approaching with deliberate steps. Before she could react, a voice whispered in her ear, "Trust no one." The web tightens. Her heart pounded as the figure melted back into the night, leaving Maria alone with her fears and a growing realization. She was ensnared in a deadly game far larger than herself. The weight of secrets and lies had grown unbearable, and Maria could feel the fragile threads holding her world together begin to snap. The Al-Fayed inheritance was no longer just a battle over money. It was a war that threatened to consume everyone caught in its path, dragging them into darkness and despair. Every day, Maria faced the harsh reality of living under constant surveillance. Cameras followed her steps. Whispered conversations ceased whenever she entered a room. Even Omar, the man she had trusted, seemed distant, haunted by the ghosts of his family's sins. One evening, tension exploded. Maria was returning from the hospital when her path was blocked by Faisal's men. The two burly men wore expressions that left no doubt. They were there to send a message. Panic surged through her veins, but her training as a nurse had taught her to stay calm in chaos. "Leave the Al-Fayed estate," one warned, voice low and threatening. "This is your final warning." Maria's heart pounded, but she refused to back down. She knew that walking away wasn't an option. Not now, not when so much was at stake. Her connection to Omar, the mysterious threats, the inheritance. It was all tangled in a deadly web she was determined to unravel. The encounter left her shaken but resolute. She turned to Omar for support, but his cold gaze told a different story. "We're playing with fire," he said quietly. "If you want to survive, you need to disappear." His words cut deeper than any threat. For the first time, Maria saw the desperation behind his charm, the fear of losing everything. That night, a violent storm raged over Dubai, mirroring the turmoil in Maria's mind. Thunder crashed as she sat alone, clutching the diamond necklace Omar had given her, a symbol of a dangerous bond that was unraveling. Suddenly, her phone buzzed with a new message, this time from Layla, Omar's estranged sister. "Meet me. We need to talk. It's about Omar and the inheritance. It's worse than you think." Against her better judgment, Maria agreed. They met in a quiet cafe, shadows playing across their faces as rain tapped on the windows. Layla's eyes were fierce with anger and desperation. "Omar's been hiding things," she said, voice trembling. "The inheritance isn't just a family feud. It's a cover for something darker. Illegal deals, corruption, and possibly murder." Maria felt the ground shift beneath her. The man she thought she knew was part of a conspiracy that threatened to engulf them all. Layla handed Maria a folder filled with documents, financial records, emails, photos, that painted a chilling picture of greed and betrayal. Among them was a photo of a man who had died under mysterious circumstances, rumored to have been silenced for challenging the family's authority. The revelations were overwhelming. Maria realized she was trapped in a labyrinth of deceit where trust was a fatal mistake. As they parted, Layla's parting words echoed in her mind. "We're all at the breaking point. Choose your side carefully, because soon there will be no turning back." Returning home, Maria's apartment door was ajar. Fear surged as she stepped inside, senses on high alert. The place had been ransacked, papers scattered, drawers emptied. Whoever was watching had made their move. She found a note scrawled hastily on the kitchen table. "Stop digging, or this will be your last warning." The message was clear. The stakes had escalated beyond threats. Now, danger was knocking at her door. Maria knew she was running out of time. The inheritance game had reached its breaking point, and the consequences would be irreversible. The break-in had shaken Maria to her core. Her sanctuary, her home, was violated. A chilling reminder that the danger lurking around the Al-Fayed inheritance battle was no longer distant. It was personal, immediate, and ruthless. Determined to stay one step ahead, Maria turned to the one place she hoped might offer answers: the hospital's CCTV system. It was her world, familiar, controlled, a place where truth was captured in cold, unblinking lenses. She spent hours poring over footage, searching for any sign of the intruders who had ransacked her apartment. The cameras outside her building were oddly absent from the recordings, a glaring omission that only deepened the mystery. But then a small flicker caught her eye. A figure, cloaked in darkness, moving swiftly and deliberately near her door in the dead of night. The face was obscured, but the gait was purposeful, no random thief, but someone who knew exactly what they were looking for. Maria's heart pounded. She had become the silent witness to a crime far bigger than herself. Desperate for help, she reached out to Yusuf, an old friend from her nursing days, a tech expert with a knack for uncovering hidden data. He agreed to assist discreetly, understanding the peril she faced. Together, they enhanced the footage, revealing subtle details. A glint of a ring, a tattoo on the wrist, small clues that began to sketch a picture of the intruder's identity. Meanwhile, Maria's relationship with Omar grew increasingly strained. The man she had trusted now seemed a stranger. His eyes guarded, his words measured. The distance between them was a chasm filled with secrets neither dared to cross. One afternoon, Omar confronted Maria with cold urgency. "You're digging too deep," he warned. "There are forces here you don't understand." But Maria refused to back down. "I need to know the truth," she insisted. "For all our sakes." The tension between them simmered beneath every conversation, every glance. Love was tangled with suspicion. Trust was a fragile thread on the verge of snapping. As Yusuf and Maria continued their investigation, they uncovered a startling connection. The intruder was linked to Faisal's circle, a fact that confirmed their worst fears. The battle for the inheritance had turned violent, and Maria was squarely in the crosshairs. Late one night, Yusuf called with urgent news. "I found something on the encrypted files you discovered earlier. A hidden folder labeled Silent Witness. It contains recordings that could expose everything." Maria's pulse quickened. This was the breakthrough she needed. But with it came a new wave of fear. Whoever controlled these recordings held immense power, and they would stop at nothing to keep their secrets buried. The next day, as Maria prepared to confront Omar with this information, she received a cryptic message. "The silent witness sees all, but speaking out will cost you everything." Her world was closing in, the stakes higher than ever. Maria realized that in this deadly game, silence could be deadly, but speaking out might be even more dangerous. The weight of the encrypted files, labeled ominously as Silent Witness, pressed heavily on Maria's mind. What secrets lay within those recordings? Could they expose the twisted truths behind the Alfayed inheritance war? Or would they unravel everything Maria had fought to protect? She sat alone in her dimly lit apartment, the glow of her laptop casting long shadows on the walls. Yusuf had managed to decrypt part of the files, and the fragments they revealed were more chilling than Maria had feared. Voices she recognized, Omar's, Faisal's, even Rashid's, were caught in clandestine conversations filled with threats, lies, and dark confessions. Plans to discredit rivals, cover up crimes, and manipulate the Sheikh's legacy unfolded like a sinister play. But one recording cut deeper than the rest. A secret meeting between Omar and a mysterious figure discussing a loose end who needed to be silenced. The words echoed in Maria's mind. Was she the loose end? Paranoia gnawed at her. The man she once loved might be plotting against her. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Betrayal cuts deepest when it comes from within. Maria's breath caught. Trust was a luxury she no longer possessed. She arranged to meet Layla again, hoping for clarity and an ally in the chaos. At a secluded cafe, the two women exchanged guarded glances. Layla's expression was grave. "You need to be careful, Maria. The family's corruption runs deep. Omar is not who you think he is. But he's my only link to the truth," Maria whispered, her voice trembling. Layla shook her head. "Sometimes, those closest to us are the ones who stab the deepest." That night, Maria's fears materialized. As she left her apartment, she spotted Omar talking on the phone in a dark alley, his voice low but urgent. "I want her watched. No mistakes," he hissed. The words hit like a punch to the gut. Omar was watching her, not protecting her. Heart pounding, Maria realized she had been a pawn all along. The next morning, she confronted Omar. His cold eyes met hers, unflinching. "Why?" she demanded. "After everything, why betray me?" Omar's voice was icy. "This isn't personal. It's survival. You either play the game or get crushed by it." Betrayal's sting cut deep, but Maria's resolve hardened. If Omar was an enemy, then she had to become stronger, smarter. That evening, she reached out to Faisal, hoping to turn the tides by playing one rival against another. Their meeting was tense, filled with veiled threats and unspoken promises. Faisal's smile was cruel. "Welcome to the real game, Maria. Here, trust is a myth and betrayal a way of life." As Maria stepped back into the shadows of the city, she knew the fight was far from over. But now she was no longer a victim. She was a player. The game had shifted. Maria was no longer a passive player but an active force in the dangerous dance unfolding within the Al Fayed estate. Yet, the most dangerous move awaited: the final seduction. A lure disguised as trust, a trap dressed in desire. Omar, despite his betrayal, was still the key to unlocking the secrets Maria desperately sought. His charm was a weapon, and tonight, she would face it head-on. They met in the opulent lounge of the palace, the room dimly lit with golden chandeliers casting flickering shadows. The air was thick with tension and unspoken truths. Omar's eyes held a strange mixture of regret and calculation as he approached her. "You shouldn't have gotten involved, Maria," he whispered, his voice low and dangerous. "But now that you have, maybe there's a way out." Maria's heart raced, torn between the man she once loved and the man who had betrayed her. She forced a smile, playing the part. "I'm listening." What followed was a masterclass in manipulation. Omar laid bare his fears of losing the inheritance, of family betrayals, and the darkness lurking beneath their gilded lives. He painted a picture of enemies closing in, of a fragile alliance that could protect them both. The lines between truth and deceit blurred as he drew her closer, his words weaving a seductive web. Maria kept her guard up, knowing this could be a trap. But she needed to hear him out, to understand his motives and find the cracks in his story. As the night deepened, so did their conversation, shifting from cold strategy to whispered confessions. Omar's touch was tentative but charged, a blend of old affection and new desperation. For a moment, Maria let herself believe that there might still be something real between them. But the shadows in his eyes told a different story, a story of lies and survival at any cost. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. A servant entered discreetly, handing Omar a sealed envelope. His face darkened as he read the contents. Maria saw the flicker of panic, proof that the inheritance battle was reaching a violent crescendo. Omar folded the letter, voice low but urgent. "They're planning something that could destroy us both." Maria's mind raced. The final seduction was not just a game of hearts. It was a prelude to a deadly confrontation. She knew she had to act fast, to decide whether to trust Omar one last time or walk away before it was too late. As they parted that night, Omar's last words lingered in the air. "In this family, love is the most dangerous weapon of all." Maria stepped into the cool night, the weight of the inheritance war pressing down on her like never before. The tension that had been simmering for months finally boiled over. The inheritance, a sprawling $300 million fortune, was no longer just a prize to be claimed. It had become a deadly weapon in a war that would leave no one untouched. Maria stood at the edge of the Al Fayed estate, the grand gates closing behind her like a prison door. The storm that had raged earlier that evening mirrored the turmoil inside her. Every breath was heavy with dread and determination. Omar had called an emergency family meeting, a final attempt to bring the fractured clan under one roof, to settle scores, and to expose the truths that had long been buried in shadows. As the key players arrived, the calculating Faisal, the bitter Layla, the cold lawyer Rashid, Maria realized this was not about reconciliation. It was a battleground. Voices clashed, accusations flew, and long-hidden secrets spilled like poison into the air. Each revelation tore at the fragile alliances, igniting old grudges and fresh betrayals. The Sheikh's will was read aloud once more. But this time, new evidence surfaced. Documents proving that the fortune was tied to illegal dealings and offshore accounts, implicating the family in crimes that would destroy their reputation and freedom. Panic erupted. Faisal accused Omar of forging documents. Omar fired back with allegations of sabotage. Maria watched as the facade of family unity crumbled completely. In the chaos, a sudden scream pierced the room. Layla collapsed, clutching her chest, her face pale and twisted in pain. The tension shifted instantly to fear. Paramedics were called, but the damage was done. Layla's collapse was no accident. It was a warning. As paramedics rushed her away, Rashid seized the moment. "This inheritance is cursed," he declared. "It brings nothing but death and destruction." Maria's heart pounded. The battle for the fortune had claimed its first victim. Outside, shadows moved. Figures exchanged hushed words. Deals struck in the dark. Maria caught a glimpse of a man slipping away, someone who had everything to gain from the chaos. The night spiraled into a frenzy of suspicion and fear. Maria knew the war was far from over. The deadly inheritance was a curse that threatened to destroy them all. And as dawn broke, a chilling realization settled over her. In this game of wealth and power, the greatest threat was not the money itself, but the people desperate enough to kill for it. The sun rose over the wreckage left in the wake of the Al-Fayed inheritance battle. A family torn apart by greed, secrets, and blood. Maria stood outside the courthouse, the weight of everything pressing down on her like a storm about to break. The trial had been a spectacle, dragging every dark truth into the harsh light of day. Evidence gathered from the silent witness recordings, financial records, and witness testimonies painted a damning portrait of a family consumed by corruption and betrayal. Omar sat across the courtroom, once her lover, now a symbol of shattered trust. His expression was unreadable, equal parts regret and defiance. Faisal's face, hard and unyielding, showed no mercy. Layla, recovering but still fragile, watched from the sidelines, a mixture of sorrow and vindication in her eyes. Maria's role had shifted from pawn to key witness, her testimony pivotal in exposing the truth. But even as justice seemed within reach, the lines between right and wrong blurred. The prosecution laid bare the extent of the family's criminal activities: money laundering, intimidation, and even murder. But the defense fought fiercely, painting a picture of betrayal and desperation on all sides. In the end, the verdict was not just about guilt or innocence, it was about survival. Omar was convicted of conspiracy and fraud, sentenced to years behind bars. Faisal faced charges but escaped severe punishment through a plea deal, leaving a bitter taste of injustice. Maria's heart was heavy. Justice had been served, but at what cost? As the court emptied, Maria found herself face to face with Layla. Was this justice? Layla asked quietly. Maria hesitated. Or revenge disguised as justice? The two women shared a glance, both aware that the scars of the inheritance war would linger far beyond the courtroom walls. Walking away from the courthouse, Maria felt the weight of her choices. The man she had loved was now a stranger in a prison cell, and the family she had tried to understand was broken beyond repair. But amid the ruins, a faint hope flickered. Maria vowed to rebuild her life on her own terms, free from the shadows of the past. The inheritance had brought death and destruction, but it had also revealed the resilience of the human spirit, how even in the darkest moments, truth and courage could prevail. As she disappeared into the bustling streets of Dubai, Maria knew one thing for certain. This was not the end, but the beginning of a new, uncertain chapter. The story of the Filipina nurse and the billionaire Sheikh's nephew ends with a harsh lesson. Justice is complicated, and sometimes the line between justice and revenge is painfully thin.